I chilled out at like mile like 13. It would just ended up being a bottleneck, which ended up being good because like nobody was going anywhere. We were all just like, there was like 20 of us in a line on this single track, and we were just like going, and it was at like a good pace for me. My heart rate was still a little high. So that was, I think I just psyched myself out with that though. The same thing with the marathon. I just psyched myself out with the heart rate. So by mile like 14, it spread out a little bit. It went onto like a little bit of a bike path. And I like broke away from people. And there was a section where like all of a sudden I was just by myself. So I'm like, okay, let me focus on my breathing. Let me just get things under control. Like nobody's around me. I feel a little bit better now. And all of a sudden I'm like, I don't see any blaze. I'm like, where are the markers? I'm like, so I'm like going and I'm like, all right, like I don't think I missed anything. So I'm running a little bit further and I see a runner coming the other direction. Didn't have a bib on. It was just someone like running in that park, like whatever. And I was like, did you see any other runners? And he's like, I think you missed the turn. And I was like, oh. So I was like, crap, I thought I did. So I turned and I like booked it back. I was at like a 7-minute pace, like running back, and I found the spot I missed. I probably added like an extra mile to the race.
This is your host, Brendan, and you're listening to the Ordinary to Ultra podcast. This podcast is all about helping you run your first ultramarathon and beyond. Tune in to hear new and experienced ultra runners share how they got into running in the first place, what inspired them to run an ultra, training and race day tips, and the gripping story of their first ultramarathon. Prepare yourself to be inspired as you hear stories of grit, sometimes failure, but ultimately triumph when our guests finally cross the finish line. Few clothing companies out there have actual trail runners design their trail running clothes, and Territory Run Co. is the few. Brett Farrell, the founder of Territory Run Co., has been an avid trail runner for over 15 years, and he has designed some of the most thoughtful, functional, and just cool trail running clothing I've ever worn. 5-panel hats, t-shirts, sun shirts, shorts, socks, beanies, and more. They've got it all. I personally, though, love Territory Run Co.'s products for 2 reasons. First, I love their vibe. Most running brands are built around this performance is everything vibe, like work hard, sweat hard. That's fine, but we have enough of those. Territory Run Co. is built around the feeling that you get when you go out and try a new trail for the first time, or when you go on a trail running trip with friends. Second, Territory Run Co. builds their products for trail runners by trail runners. I have 2 of their hats, and they're my go-to running hats because they're incredibly light, super breathable, have super cool outdoorsy patterns, and I can throw them in the washing machine, which is super convenient. But what I love most about them is they have a little loop that goes around that floppy strap in the back of the hat that keeps it from flopping in front of your face if you're wearing it backwards, which is fantastic. Anyway, if y'all are in the market for some trail running hats or clothing, go check out Territory Run Co. And lucky for you, Brett has hooked me up with a coupon code for the listeners of this podcast. So head over to territoryrun.co and use the code ordinary to ultra20 to get 20% off your first order. Both the website and the code are listed in the show notes of this episode. So go down to the show notes, copy the code, tap the link, and get some sick gear. All right, thanks for listening. Now back to the show. Hey, Patrick, welcome to the Ordinary to Ultra podcast, my friend. Super excited to have you here. Thanks for your time, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Sick. Well, to start off, man, just like we always do, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you just as a person, like how old you are, where you live, what you do for work, and what your family looks like.
So I am 29, originally from South Jersey, like right outside of Atlantic City. I have been living in Philadelphia the last couple of years, but just this past couple of months ago, I moved to the suburbs. I bought a house in the suburbs of Philadelphia. So I got married last year, so I have a wife. I don't have kids yet. And I'm living the homeowner life. For work, I'm a speech language pathologist. So I work with kids, and I have my own company with that. So that's kind of an
Huh.
important part of this because like it allows me to have a very free and flexible schedule.
Yes. That's really cool, man. I run the risk of getting sidetracked by businessy stuff because that's sort of my jam too. But I'm just curious, if you didn't do your own business, would you be like working in a school probably, or
I
I
was in
don't
a
know,
clinic. I still work. I
clinic?
still work at that clinic. I just had my 6 year anniversary like a couple days ago. I still work there like a little bit part time. Schools were
Yeah,
never really my thing, but yeah, I've been doing this
yeah.
about a year and a half now, and that
Your
was kind of like the
personal
start of it when
business.
I got started to get back into running and everything. So
Oh, nice. Dang, busy time though. Like full time job plus business plus running, or part time at the clinic now, or
it's like part time at the clinic. The rest is my own practice. So I'm like full time across the board and
yeah,
everything. But I just have like
yeah,
flexibility with things.
yeah.
So
When you
it's
do
all it's
things,
all balancing ebbs and flows.
yeah. Man, that's really cool. That's good for you, man. It is nice to have that flexibility. Hard to come by unless you are self-employed. I feel like
Yeah, I
I'm
was working like
blessed.
10-hour days before, and
Yeah,
like running would have been. You get creative and everything, but it's a lot different now, a lot more doable.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's sick, dude. Thanks for telling us more about you. Um, to kick things off, I'd love to hear about when you got into running and why, whenever that was.
So I played soccer my whole life, very competitively, and back like elementary school age, my coach who was more of like a runner guy, he in the off season was like, "Hey guys, like come do this 1 mile run, like local 1 mile run." So I started like getting into like races in like elementary school, and
Hmm.
I beat everyone on my team. Like I was like, wow, it kind of like surprised me, and I just can kind of continued to do like local 1 mile runs, 5Ks. Then I was doing like the local like Atlantic City 10 mile run as like a kid, like not knowing anything that I was doing. It was crazy. So I kind of had an early exposure, but I was always just kind of like athletic, and it was like just always like a side thing. I never trained for it, and that was kind of my introduction to it.
So
It was
way
always
back. And did you keep doing like little races like throughout like junior high and high school, or did it kind of like die off in there?
it died off a little bit. So like in high school, like I continued to play very competitively. I played soccer in college, so like
Oh,
through high
cool.
school, I was like working my way up there. So I was like in very good shape. I did I mean I did like there was also the Philadelphia Broad Street Run. It's this cool run in Philadelphia where it's just like 10 miles straight through the city, like straight shot, no turns or anything. So I did that several years growing up. And in high school, like I ended up doing really well. Like not placing or anything, but personally, like a 6.5 mile or minute mile pace. Like
That's
so
fantastic
I was pretty happy with
for
that. And then
10 miles.
I did a half
Dang.
marathon like towards the end of high school. But then it kind of just like teetered off. Like I was just always in like decent shape. It was always just like a side thing. I never really took it
Yeah.
seriously. And then I went to college, and it went kind of back and forth like through there.
Yeah, because you were doing college soccer, and were you also doing running races at that time, or did you kind of drop that?
No, so I actually only ended up playing college soccer for a year. And then I
Okay.
transferred to a different school, decided not to play. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm in college. I don't have a sport anymore. Then I was like, let's go to parties. And it
Uh-huh.
kind of like very changed. And I kind of like really kind of just wasn't exercising that much. That was just for like a
Yep.
year or less. Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
Okay. Short
yeah,
period.
I started getting back into it again.
Yeah. Okay. So, when did you most recently get like back into running? Yeah.
So, one little like side thing I'll go off on a second. So back in like
Sure.
2018, I did an entire
Okay.
year of like competitive bodybuilding,
Okay. Wow.
and
Competitive.
yeah, like competitive. Yeah, like I
Like
did pretty well.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I did a couple competitions. Like I got first place. Like it was like a little. It served its purpose
Dang.
in my life. Like it just for what it was. It served its purpose. I did like a year of it, and then it was like, this is not the lifestyle I want to live. Like, it's very regimented. Like, I had like a coach for nutrition and everything like that. And then that was like 2018. I was like stayed in the gym, and then 2020 came around, like pandemic, gym shut down. And I was like, I came across Goggins. I listened to his book. Like I was doing a lot of driving for work. So I listened to his book, and he started talking about ultras. So I was like, oh, okay. Gyms are shut down. I'm like, let me get back into running. And I went to start running, and I could hardly run a mile. It was like tough. So, and just like I feel like everyone talks about, I ended up finding out it was like my IT band, because like
dumb IT bands.
Yeah. I'd get to like the mile mark, and then I like couldn't do anything more. I was just like in this like horrible pain. So that was kind of like a punch in the gut. I was like, oh, like, yeah, I'm going to get into ultra running, like something competitive again. And it did not happen. So that teetered off. I got into like biking and hiking and stuff like that. Like that was
2020s,
cool.
you said?
Yeah, 2020, 2021. So where this like last stint came from, though, my younger brother, he's like ahead of me in the ultra game. He back in 2022, he did a triathlon and then a 55-mile race right after, and then went right into training for a 100-mile race. And I was like, oh man, I'm like, I gotta get back into this again. Like, it's my little brother. So for that 100-mile race, that's what really kicked it off for his 100-mile race. Cause I started looking at it again. I watched like the Barkley Marathons documentary, which I was like, this is awesome, And I started training to pace him. I didn't even know what a pacer was at first. I was just like, yo, like if you need me to crew you, like anything you need, I'll be there. And then I learned about pacing, and I started training to be his pacer. And I didn't want to embarrass myself. Like, I wanted to at least be able to pace him a little bit without struggling. And this is before I knew like what the pace of like he'd be running and everything at that mark. So that really kind of took off. So I ended up pacing him for that race, which was like a crazy experience. I did, what was it? Sorry, let me take a look real quick.
And what race was it? What was it called?
So it was a race in New Jersey. It was called the Jersey Devil 100. Have you ever heard of the Jersey Devil? It's like a folklore in New Jersey. And where we live, there's this area, like this just area in the woods. It's called the Pine Barrens. Have you ever heard of that?
I know nothing.
So I know you're like out west.
I'm a West Coast person.
Yeah. So the Pine Barrens are like this weird, like woodsy area. Like it's like almost like swampy. It's just like it's because the habitat there is like sandy soil. Like what can grow there and flourish there is like tough. So that's where the race was. It's this trail through New Jersey. It's a like a 55 mile trail through New Jersey. So the 55-mile trail he did was like a straight shot through that. The 100 was just that and back. So I joined him at the 50-mile mark. I did like 17 miles with him, and then he was going through some stuff like IT band stuff.
Really?
I tapped out at like 17 miles, and his buddy was there. His buddy tagged in.
Okay, got it. So you were beat too. Were you pretty wrecked?
I was okay. I was feeling my own IT band, but like we were going at a slow enough pace where like he was going through stuff where I wasn't going to say anything.
You're like, leave you alone.
Yeah. So it was just cool. Like, I mean, the race was so cool though. Like I went to the start with them, and like people have headlamps on, there's drop bags, people were sleeping in their cars at the trailhead. It was so cool. I'm like, okay, this is like, I think really what I want to do. So like I said, I started with him, we did that, his buddy tagged in, and then, I went to the next aid station, slept in my car a little bit because it was just me and his buddy were crewing him. We went to the next aid station, and, I was sleeping. They like woke me up out of the car, and it was pouring raining. Right when I tapped out, it started pouring raining. So I kind of got lucky there. And I was like, we were trying to figure out if I was going to tag back in at the end, or if not. We didn't know how it was going to go. And before I tagged back in, he said something to me. He's like, you're going to finish it with me, right? And I was like, yeah. Like, I'm like, if you're asking me, like, yeah, I will. Like, he was like at that point where like he needed someone, and I was like, of course I will. Like, whatever it is. So I met up at the next aid station where I was going to tag back in. It was like 2:30 in the morning, pouring rain.
Oh,
And I had to like get dry clothes on, and like, no, I was going to go back into the forest with them for that last, it ended
yeah,
up being another 12 miles. And,
sure.
we ended up pretty much walking the last 12 miles in like pouring rain thunderstorm. It was pretty crazy, you know, like ponchos on, just like trudging through water. And we finished at like sunrise, like 6:30 in the morning. It was crazy, crazy experience. That really bonds you, you know?
Totally. With your brother. Man.
So
And he finished, so that's fantastic for him.
yeah, he was a little over 24 hours. He was mad he didn't beat the 24 hours, but I was like looking at my watch, trying to like see if we could do it. But the pace he was going, his IT band was hurting him from like mile like 30 or something. Like he did a lot of the race without it. So that was just, that put a picture in my head about like what 100's like, running through that was like quite an experience for me and him, I'm sure, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool that
Then,
you get to know what that looks like early
yeah,
on.
yeah.
And that spurred something inside of your soul, maybe?
Yeah, so that was like April of 2023, and I was like, I'm gonna get into this. So the race he did the year before, it was like that trail in New Jersey is called the Batona Trail. So it's a Batona 55. It's in the fall, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. So that's what got it's just a 55-mile race. That's what got that distance in my head. It's like real close to our house or where my parents lived and everything. And I was like, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm just going to make that happen. Like, it's near home. It's really cool. It's not a super technical trail, so it would be a good ultra to do. They ended up not getting the permits, so it got canceled.
Oh.
So then I was like, come on. So I had been training like that summer. I got into doing I was up to 50, 60 miles a week.
Yeah. 2023, this last summer.
I was getting ready for it.
Yeah.
I found another race around the same time. And this that fall 2023, that's when I was getting married too. So a lot of wedding planning. That's something I'm glad I'll never have to do again.
Oh, right.
The wedding was awesome. Great, but the planning is so much.
Yeah.
So I found another race kind of closer to where I currently live, and it was called the Dirty Austrian. So it was so there's this group in this area that does ultras in the Philadelphia area, and they're all German themed. So
cool.
The one I ended up doing a month ago was called the Dirty German, and they have what do they have? The half sour, half kraut. This all these different ones. At these races, they have polka music playing. They serve you a bratwurst and sauerkraut at the end. The prizes are little cuckoo clocks, handmade cuckoo clocks.
Dude, that's awesome.
I don't know the history of why, but everyone loves the theme, you know?
Yeah. That's
so.
fun.
The Dirty Austrian was supposed to be the first of that race. It was going to be a 20, a 40, or a 60K. And because they were running all distances, because I had that 55 in my head, I was like, I'm going to do the 60K. So that one ended up getting canceled.
Yeah.
They didn't have enough.
Course. Oh, dang. Had you registered?
What's that?
Had you registered?
I did. Yeah. Okay. So I was able, they just gave me a refund. I actually just pushed my registration to the Dirty German I did this past May.
Yeah. So you're JK, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, but it was just I was so ready to do one. I wasn't really going to travel for one because it was around wedding time. And I was taking off 2.5 weeks for wedding and honeymoon. I just was going to do something near home. And so I ended up doing the Philadelphia Marathon, which was the first marathon I did. I was going to just bypass that and just jump right to the 55 and then the 60K. But I ended up doing it. It's a really cool race.
And when did that happen?
That was November of 2023.
Okay, so after the wedding
Yeah, it
and
was about 4
everything.
weeks after the wedding. So that was like mid training where like I went on my honeymoon, like went to like an all inclusive resort. I didn't run for a week. That was
Nice.
like
Good
4.
tapering.
Yeah,
Yeah, all part of the plan.
yeah, right.
Cool.
Yeah,
Where'd you go?
Barbados.
Barbados. Is that
Yeah.
Caribbean or not? I don't. Where's
Yeah, it's
Barbados?
like
It is?
down near like South America, like in that realm. It's like hurricane season, so we went like below like the hurricane belt, so like we didn't have to worry about that. It was a
Oh,
great trip.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't run though. I
Sunny.
brought my shoes. I didn't run.
Yeah, yeah, no. Yeah, probably busy with the new wife.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on that. Being
Thank you.
married. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Yeah. No, it was very, very exciting.
I haven't asked yet or it hasn't come up. Does your wife run at all?
She's getting back into it. You know, like she
Yeah.
is. She used to be a runner. She was a college athlete too. When I was doing the bodybuilding, she would like I'd go to the gym at like 5 a.m. and she'd go for a run. Like she
Oh,
was a runner. She did the half marathons and stuff. But kind of went away from it. She's trying to get back into it. So I said, like, when I can start getting some miles in again, we'll build kind of back up together. I don't
mhm.
know. She hasn't talked about necessarily doing an ultra. She might do
Yeah.
like that, like a 20 or 40K. I don't know. Is 40K, is that technically an ultra? What's that mile
Oh,
wise?
it's
I don't know.
it would be close. Gonna
So
Google it.
yeah.
And no,
Okay.
it is 24.8 miles.
All right.
Almost.
But in a trail race, you know, like, and it's not an ultra, but like a 40K trail race is still legit,
That's
you
super
know.
solid.
So yeah, I think that she's gonna try to get into that a little bit, or at least hopefully, like when I work my way back up, be able to pace me. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. She's sort of into that too. Yeah. It's always fun when when you're a couple that can run together. And that can also be difficult. Um, like when you have kids, because you both want to get out, and then you have to.
Yeah, I'm.
That's
That's
down the road, man. You got time, man.
that's like talk about that now. It's like next year. I'm not
Yeah,
worried. You make it happen. You prioritize things.
yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
sure. Like, what, you have a kid or two?
I'm coming up on 2 kids in August.
Right. So I'm
Yep.
sure once reality sets in, like for me, I might change my tune, but it's doable. You said it's like a Mama Five on, right?
Say that again.
You had a Mama
Mom,
Five, like with five
oh,
kids or something.
I grew up in a family of 4.
No, no,
Um,
sorry. You interviewed someone that had.
oh, I'm like totally off here. Yeah, yeah, I did. Mom,
So
yeah, that was a few episodes ago. I think it was 4 or 5. Yeah, she made it happen. Yeah,
right,
you just make it happen, right?
right.
I think, yeah, you just end up switching off. If you both run, then you can like switch off. Like you go in the mornings, I go in the evenings, or you take your kids in the stroller and like it becomes a super workout.
Yeah, I could see myself doing that. Can't really
Yeah,
do the
dude.
trail necessarily, but you get miles in.
Gotta get the miles in. Yeah. Okay. But yes, you do this marathon in November and to like keep the training up pretty much because you'd already had your eyes set on this ultra in the next spring, but you're like,
Yeah, I had to do something, and the marathon's
yeah,
super cool. Like it where I was living in Philadelphia, it like went right down the street, right near me, and everything. And we watched it one year, and I was like, I need to do this race. It's super
cool.
cool. Like I'm just running a race like that. That's big, like close to you. It's real cool. So
Yeah.
I was already trained. I had no doubt in my mind I could do it. So, but it's a very different race. Like I pushed it, you know. I did like a
Hmm.
4 hour, 5 minute marathon, but that was like I was pushing it for
Nice.
me. Like I was pretty happy with that. I didn't have any crazy expectations. But it's definitely
That's awesome.
much different than I would run an ultra.
Right. Bro, I got the same time. I got 4:04 on my first marathon.
I was like
Boom.
in my head, I was like, I kind of wish I would have broke 4 hours, but it's all. I
I know,
was like,
right?
all the time. It was a
Close
good,
enough.
yeah, it was a good pace.
Yeah, it was like 9-minute, almost 9-minute miles for 26 miles. Like, it's a long time to be cruising that fast.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. Totally different. Totally different than ultras. Did you like it? Did you like the vibe? Were you like, yeah, I could do another marathon? Or yeah,
I would do it again just because it's my local one.
okay.
But so many people. Like,
Oh yeah, it's one of the big crowded ones.
it's a big one, yeah. So many people, which I don't love. Like, I
Yeah,
loved like being isolated on the trails. But like also that the people cheering, it was awesome, like really cool. There's so many
true.
people cheering. My family was
Yeah.
there, my wife was there. But we ran like right near my house. They like they gave me like a donut. Like
Ah,
we through like the
nice.
last 4 miles. So it was a good experience. I enjoyed it. I would probably do it again, but that's not really my thing. I don't think I'm going to be training for marathons.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally different. Vibe and training wise, yeah, it's different. And at this time, you said, I mean, you were building up for your ultras here. Um, what kind of miles were you putting in preparation for the ultra? Like, yeah,
For the ultra, like the before the marathon, I was up to like 50, 60 mile weeks a little bit. Maybe probably more like getting like more like 40, 50 consistently.
okay,
Before the ultra, it was consistently like between 40 and 50 miles a week.
okay,
I was,
nice.
and because I was also trying to throw in like a little bit of strength training because like I
Oh
was
yeah,
from the start of like when I first back in 2020 tried to get into running when I had that IT band stuff, like I'd been fighting that the entire time. Like when
yeah,
I started getting ready for my brother's 100, I ran 3 miles and felt my IT band. I was like, okay, let's progress at least. But
yeah.
then it was like, okay, I ran 12 miles. I'm gonna feel it. So the notch kept going up higher and higher, and
Mm,
I
nice.
ended up feeling it pretty good during the marathon. But I knew that I mean, I watched my brother struggle through it for his 100. I didn't want to do that. So I really took a conscious effort, like during my training up for the ultra, to throw in exercises to combat that. And it ended up paying off. It really did.
Ooh, good. That's great. Great to hear. And I love getting people on here that do strength training because I think it's a battle. A lot of us are like, well, I'd really rather be on the trail than strength training, but it's so helpful. And it's good to hear that helped specifically with the IT band issues. Yeah, I hear that, yeah, that strength training can help with that. Hip flexors,
Yeah.
even Achilles and calf issues, like all that.
And
All the
like
tendons can be helped.
working those exercises aren't like the prettiest thing. And I think that that's why it's like not that like exciting to do. Like I wasn't necessarily even doing squats and stuff. Like there was just like these little exercises, almost like body weight, like
Yeah.
plyometrics, like those types of things to get the stabilizers and those little muscles. But that's what you need.
Hmm. That's great feedback, man. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so you're putting in like 40, 50 mile weeks working up to the ultra. That's awesome. Did you have a training plan or were you kind of just like, this is enough? Like this is what I've read and I think this is going to work.
I I didn't have a training plan. I honestly like I would text my little brother and be like see what he thought about different things. So
Cool.
he's helped me a lot through this. Didn't have a training plan, but just like ran when I could with my schedule. Like my the way my work schedule would be like one morning I might not have to go into work till like noon. So I know that like that Wednesday morning every week I could do a long run. And like so yeah, I just planned it around that and it kind of just worked out.
Nice.
I didn't
Solid.
overthink it.
Yeah. Um, were you thinking about during this training period too? Were you thinking about nutrition at all? Like, this is what I'm gonna eat, and like, I'm gonna eat every half hour, or like anything like that.
I wasn't thinking too much about the race nutrition. I was experimenting a little bit. Like I would play around with like going and doing like a longish run, like 10 to 15, and then stopping somewhere and getting like a little snack, digesting a little, and then trying to do a little bit more, like just getting used to like both taking a break and starting back up, but also like eating something and running. So I'd get like a bag of chips and a soda, or some like I started the one thing I really liked was hash browns.
Ooh,
That was like my go-to.
nice.
And this store, it's a New Jersey store. So I wanted, but I would go sometimes they wouldn't have them, and it was like devastating.
Oh, hash browns, like a hash brown patty.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That makes sense. Salty carbs, salty
Yeah.
carbs.
Yeah. So I was
That's good
playing around
stuff.
a little bit. I was using gels, but I knew in my head that I didn't want to use gels the entire ultra, and I knew that wasn't realistic necessarily. The nutrition's hard; it really is.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Did you in the marathon? Did you do gels during?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did
it's
gels. I was pretty regimented there. I feel like it's easier to be regimented during a marathon. I was like just pretty like whatever it was for every 45 minutes or something, 40 minutes. I was taking a gel, and that was fine.
yeah, yeah. It's fine. You can definitely feel it when it kicks in, and that's fantastic. And the caffeine to me helped too. I had some with caffeine.
Yeah, I played with that too. I
Um,
didn't notice like too much of a difference. I was always like, I don't know. I went more for like the flavor. I'm like, what do I feel like? What kind of goo flavor do I think I can take down right
did you
now?
have a variety pack, or like you had
I
like
played with some different
one
things. There
flavor?
are definitely some ones I did not like. I ended up liking like berry flavored ones, raspberry and stuff like blueberry, stuff like that.
Yep, Tri-berry, baby. That's
Yeah,
my
yeah, that's the one. I like that one.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one. The GU Tri-berry,
Yep.
man.
Yep.
That's it. But after having like 8 of them over the course of a marathon, you kind of don't want to have them ever again.
I know. Yeah.
Just save them for race day. Well, man, before we get into the story of your race, I'd love to ask just a few other questions about your running experience and such. One, do you have running buddies that like you'd train with, or that you run with too? Is your brother like going out with you and keeping you,
That's a great
maybe
question. I
some
like that
friends?
new question.
Yeah, new questions.
Yeah, no. So I have mixed feelings about that. Not typically.
Okay.
My brother, he's like, he's not, he doesn't really live near me. He converted his
Okay.
car. He's more of like he went across the country, more like in your neck of the woods. He's actually in California right now working at some camp. He's more just like, let me go with the wind and run the trails of the country. So I have
Cool.
run. I do really like running with him. I tried a run group in Philadelphia once or twice, and it was nice. Like it was cool meeting some people. But it was also just like such this like big thing. It ended up being a very big group. And then long story short, I don't really run with people. I sometimes I feel like I should, but I just like having some me time.
Mm-hmm. I feel that. So all your runs usually are solo
Yeah.
time runs.
Yep.
Cool.
It does
Cool.
pass the time talking to people. Those miles go by real quick.
They do. But I get it. Like, I've got a long run tomorrow in the morning before work, and I was like, should I invite people, or do I just want to plug into my book and zone out and have a good time in the forest by myself? And
Don't you say
it's
it?
hard
I
to decide.
like listening to books when I run. That's like
Yeah,
a side topic, but yeah, like the whole music, whatever. But I like books, especially for
yeah,
the long runs.
yeah. I'm glad you agree, man. I do a good mix of like nothing. If it's a short run, I might just do nothing. But on the long run, on the weekend, I'll probably stick on an audiobook. I've got some audiobooks that are like 50 hours long. They're super long and just awesome fantasies, fun stories to tune into. So, I get totally zoned out into this, fantasy world while I'm in the forest. And it's just I don't know, they go well together.
I also like the no music too.
Yeah.
For some reason, I really like that move too. It's hard to
Yeah.
explain, but yeah.
That's new for me. When I'm on the road, I always have something on, but when I'm in the forest, in the mountains, yeah, sometimes I don't, and it's super peaceful, and you get into the flow state. That's something I'd like to talk about more too. Like
Yeah.
part of the reason we love running long distances is like you get in the zone, the flow,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just the best feeling. You're just completely at one with yourself and the mountains, and it's just a good time. Like with nothing on, you're just
Yeah.
zoned in and
I
flowing.
think with
It
music,
feels
I like
good.
it doesn't allow me to get that as much. Like I'm like, oh, do I like this song? Oh, what do I do next? And like without the
Yeah,
music, I just get in that trance.
yeah, yeah. That reminds me. I was running a half marathon race a few weeks ago, and I was listening to a book because it just helps chill me out and not think about all the miles that are coming or my pace or whatever. Just like helps me get out of that mindset. And the book turns off like at mile 8, and I was like, I still have 5 miles left, and I really need this right now. But my headphones just stopped working. And it took me like a mile of me like running and fidgeting with my dumb phone and my headphones to figure out what had happened. Anyway, it stinks when something goes wrong in the middle of a race like that. It was really distracting.
Especially in the middle of a race.
Yeah, in a race, training
Yeah.
run, whatever. But
Yeah.
I didn't want to stop, so I had to like do this awkward hobble. Ugh. Anyway, but good. Yeah, that was a good topic. You know, it's fun to do a mix of both listening and forest time, mind time. And cool with going solo. That's awesome.
I was
Cool.
also a big part of my training was heart rate stuff
Mm,
and tuning into that. Like I felt like when I wouldn't listen to music, I could tune into that better, focus on my cadence and my foot like strike and everything and kind of do that. I like retrained my whole foot strike. I used to be like a heel striker, then I became four foot striker and everything. So I feel like just without the music, I was able to just really kind of focus on that and just my heart rate in general. So yeah.
thanks for mentioning that. I also train by heart rate, and maybe there's other ways to train, but I love it. You know, I like stick in my zone 2, and if I'm
Yeah.
sticking in my
Yep.
zone 2 most of the time, then
Yep.
I'm golden. Um, but with the foot strike, have you found that it's like, is it helpful to be front foot striker versus heel striker?
So I really started looking into it a lot when I was getting back into running and was having that IT band stuff. Like I think just
Okay.
naturally growing up, whatever, I have a great picture of my half marathon and I'm heel striking so hard. And I ran a great race, never had issues. But I also think I was playing because I was playing soccer, I had like those stabilizer muscles and I never had an issue. So when I started getting back into running and I started just looking into things, I'm like, why am I having this knee pain and everything? And I started seeing a lot of stuff about just like foot striking and everything like that. And
Interesting.
I don't know. I know people make things work regardless of what your stuff is. But I've just gotten really used to it and I like it. I don't know if it's going to pay off in the long run. But yeah,
And you like it? Why do you like it? The front foot.
I don't know. I I
Is it,
I
do you
think
feel like
I've
you're going
read enough where
faster?
like I think I there's a big push to saying it's better. Just for your overall, like if you're heel striking, I think you're more prone to maybe knee stuff. But I think there's
Okay.
people that I mean, what do you do?
Yeah. I don't know too much. I feel like I notice myself landing in the middle or front too. Like
Right.
I just naturally am not a heel striker, so I don't know what that
Well, and
is like. Um,
I
Go ahead.
think one of the things is I used to stride a lot, like have a huge stride, and I've
Okay.
gotten better about trying to just like with the whole zone 2 training, going
Sure.
slower, smaller, like more steps and everything, and it's easier to
Mm,
just do that like mid foot or forefront
true.
striking everything. Where before I think I was like doing these huge strides and then I was landing on my heel, so it
Hmm.
all kind of came together, and I think for me just in general it's better. and more conducive to the whole ultra aspect of just like a little bit of a slower pace, more steps.
That makes sense. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, dude. All right. So you've been doing this training throughout the winter time, 40, 50 miles a week. And then the race was in May. Is that right?
Middle of May.
Middle of May. Okay, I think we're ready. So I'd love to hear about how race day went from in as much detail as you can remember. Luckily, it was like a month ago, so that's sweet. Hope you was probably pretty fresh, but like, you know, how you slept the night before, how you were when you were waking up in the morning, what you ate for breakfast, how you were like if you had to drive, how long was that? I don't know. And then how you felt like from starting the race, anything notable that happens during the race, until you hit the finish line. Tell me all of the things.
So the week, I'll start like a little bit before the week of the race. I like really was getting in the mindset. I think that's huge. Like I mentioned before we started, like I had this shoulder surgery coming up right after it. So in my head, I was like, I know I'm not going to be able to run for 3 months after this. My mindset was like, I'm getting through this race no matter what. I didn't know what my pace was going to be. So the week of the race, got really in the mindset. I read or I listened on Audible to Born to Run.
Nice.
I watched ultra documentaries every single night. And then that Barkley Marathons documentary. I said the night before my first ultra, I'm going to watch that again. So that's what I did. So I was like in the mindset for sure, just like so hyped, looking at like watching like Courtney Dauwalter and Sally McRae and like people like that. So like the Moab and those races. So
they did a Moab, like Courtney Dauwalter or Sally did a documentary on one of the Moab ones, or
maybe was it Moab, or one of them was like the Tahoe 200. There was one on that. I forget exactly, but my brother just sent me a couple good ones, and
I think there's a Moab 240. Maybe that's what you're thinking of. Goodness gracious.
Yep. Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
One I forget. I think it might be Sally McRae. She refers to them as epics, not even ultras.
Yeah, epics, like, next level.
Yeah. So yeah, I was like really in the mindset for this ultra. Like I was really excited. The one cool thing that week too was that when I got the race information like a week before, I found out I could have a pacer, which I didn't think I was going to be able to for 50 miles. And so it was cool. Oh, I got to go on a tangent for a second. If that's okay. 10 days before the race, my brother, he did a self-supported 100-mile race. He raised money, and I ended up doing like 22 or 23 miles with him, like 10 days before my race. So like, he wasn't pressuring. He's like, I know you have your race, like if that's going to mess with your taper and everything. But yeah, he did this on the Atlantic City boardwalk, a self-supported 100-mile. It was 11 miles on the boardwalk back and forth. It took him 23 hours. That was crazy.
Dang. And he raised money for
so like the Boys and Girls Club of Atlantic City. Yeah. So that was cool. So I was with them with that for like the end of that too. So nice. It was like being a pacer. Like I said, it's cool. And it's especially cool to do it for your brother. So when I found out I could have a pacer, I was like, hey, I know like you're recovering from your 100, but I'd love to have you as a pacer it was for you could have it for the third lap. My race ended up, it was three loops.
Okay.
So he was like, let me see how I feel when I get running again. And he ended up doing it for me. So that was really cool. So that was like another boost of confidence, knowing that on loop 3, I was going to have him with me. So the night of, or the week of, I was just eating pretty normal, just trying to stay like just increasing my calories a little bit, but eating what I normally eat. Same with the night before. I didn't have like burger and pizza or anything like that. Because that was going to mess up my GI stuff the next morning. I just had to have things like timed like I normally do. So I just ate a bigger meal the night before. I worked the day before and I was like just packing stuff. Like I definitely packed way too much stuff for the race. So I went to
It's
bed a
good.
little bit. Just I was like, I don't know if I need 10 shirts. No, I packed like 3 shirts. um, like I was just packed. I didn't know, and it had been
Yeah.
raining leading up to the race, like a couple days
Oh
leading up to the
dear.
race. So I didn't know how
Mm.
sloppy things were going to be. I packed a couple pairs of shoes, things like that. So I ended up going to bed a little bit late, but I was also just like excited. Woke up early. Luckily, the race was 15 minutes, no, actually like 10 minutes from my house.
Mm.
It was on the trails that I train on like every day. So I had been running the trails for weeks of that was the race. So it was a lot of like visualizing, getting ready. And so that was really, I was fortunate for that. Just I didn't have to stress about driving and all that.
Yeah.
So I woke up, normal breakfast, same breakfast I normally have. Like I always have like an omelet and an English muffin. So I had that.
Nice.
And we got there early, probably too early, but I just wanted to get parked and set up. We set up a tent. My wife, she has 2 people she works with who their husbands were both doing the race too. So it was cool. Like, the 3 of them were there. They got to hang out for the entire day. So I didn't feel as bad for my wife just sitting around at the tent all day. And
Yeah.
their husbands, or one's a fiance, one's a husband. They'd done like a lot of ultras before. So it was my first they were experienced. So that was cool just to have like a
Mm.
little bit of a group there.
Hmm.
And it was cool. Yeah. I mean, the race was set up. Like the atmosphere is just so cool at the start of ultras, just so laid back. This race, there was a 25K, a 50K, and then I was doing the 50 miler. It was different start times. So it was really laid back. I was at like my tent until like 5 minutes before the race started.
Ooh,
Um,
nice.
so going into the race, like I knew the course and I knew that there was like an open, it was like almost like a vehicle could drive through the trail. That's how wide it was at the start, like for a couple miles. And then it went into single track. And
Mm.
I had the idea where I wanted to just like get ahead of some people. I was really nervous about getting like bottlenecked and behind people in like the single track stuff.
Yeah.
So I knew I had a general idea of like the pace I wanted to go, but also I never ran 50 miles before. So I didn't know what would be appropriate. Like I
Yeah.
think the longest run I did before that, I did the marathon, but I think I by myself did like a 27-mile run. I never did anything else. Like I skipped over the 50K.
Hmm.
So I went out a little strong just to get ahead of people, and then my heart rate jacked up. Part of it was like excitement, race day
Yep.
stuff and everything, but also
Uh-huh.
like I was running like a 8.5, 9 minute pace.
Oh
Um,
golly.
so I quickly like slowed down, and then people started passing me. It was that first lap was hard. It was probably, I would say, the hardest of the 3 loops, believe it or not. Being around people, not like feeling pressure to not being able to run my race. That's something that I feel like people should really just try to like remind themselves, like run your own race.
Hmm.
People would come up behind me and I'd be like, oh, I don't want to be walking the section. But in my head, I knew that my plan was to like walk the uphills, where people were running it. I just, it was hard. My heart rate was high. I was nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to do this? In the back of my head, I'm like, and when's my injury going to hit? When am I going to feel my IT ban? So
Dang IT bands.
I was psyching myself out big time.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Could I stop you real quick?
yeah.
What was the elevation gain on this sucker?
Total was like 3,500 feet. So nothing
35.
crazy. For,
Solid.
yeah, like across the 3 loops and everything.
Doable.
It was, yeah, I mean, it was fun trail run, nothing crazy technical. There were some ups and downs, but nothing crazy. Yeah, and that's kind of why I picked this. Like, it was a good first ultra to do. I wasn't going to
Yeah.
pick like my first 50 miler to be like a 8,000 foot elevation gain race,
Yeah. Yeah. Those are hard.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So you're going this first lap, you like start off super fast. That's really fast. And do you end up chilling out at some point? You're like, I'm going to slow down now.
I chilled out at like mile like 13. It would just ended up being a bottleneck, which ended up being good because like nobody was going anywhere. We were all just like, there was like 20 of us in a line on this single track, and we were just like going, and it was at like a good pace for me. My heart rate was still a little high. So that was, I think I just psyched myself out with that though. The same thing with the marathon. I just psyched myself out with the heart rate. So by mile like 14, it spread out a little bit. It went onto like a little bit of a bike path. And I like broke away from people. And there was a section where like all of a sudden I was just by myself. So I'm like, okay, let me focus on my breathing. Let me just get things under control. Like nobody's around me. I feel a little bit better now. And all of a sudden I'm like, I don't see any blaze. I'm like, where are the markers? I'm like, so I'm like going, and I'm like, all right, like I don't think I missed anything. So I'm running a little bit further, and I see a runner coming the other direction. Didn't have a bib on. It was just someone like running in that park, like whatever. And I was like, did you see any other runners? And he's like, I think you missed the turn. And I was like, oh. So I was like, crap, I thought I did. So I turned and I like booked it back. I was at like a 7-minute pace, like running back, and I found the spot I missed. I probably added like an extra mile to the race.
Okay. That could have been a lot worse.
Yeah. So
dang.
That was like crazy. So, and I was actually like, my brother was coming up to meet me and everything. I was like shooting him a text here or there, like letting him know. And, he is this thing. I don't know. Do you know he's like old or retired Navy SEAL or whatever, Jocko Willink?
No.
So it's like Goggins type guy, you know, and yeah. He's awesome though. And he's this thing where like, and my brother, he uses it, and I've taken it over too, where like everything is just, the response is good. So I told him I missed the turn. He's like, good. And it's just like, everything is a learning experience, you know, like good. You learn something from it. It's so you should look it up. So nice. There's like a motivational on YouTube, like a Jocko Willink, good, like official video. And it's like simple, and it's like a cool motivational video, but it's like a good mindset to have. Like, and that's kind of the, what I just keep in my head the entire time, like during training, like it's raining. You got to do a long run. It's raining. Good. Then you learn how to run in the rain. Different things like that. So instead of dwelling on things, just being like, good, it's a learning experience. You always learn something from it. Mm-hmm. Good mindset. So yeah, he texted me back, was like, good. And I was like, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I got back on track. It was fine. Wasn't too bad. I just was like a little embarrassed. Not that anybody really saw me.
What mile was that at ish?
About 15, I think.
Okay. Pretty early.
So, and it was, that was getting close. Like, what's 50 divided by 3? The race ended up, so we'll get to this. The race ended up only being like 48 and a half miles or something. We'll get to that, what I did with that in a second. So whatever it was. So that was also throwing me off too. Because I was like, well, how far am I? Like the whole time. So I ended up getting to the start finish line where we had our tent. I was like texting my wife, like, hey, I need this. Like, can you just have it ready for me? Stop there. Didn't sit down or anything. I was feeling good. Like body was feeling good. Stopped there, refueled a little bit, took a couple swigs of soda. That was one of the things. Like I love soda. So like during the race, they would have little cups of soda, and I took one at every single aid station. And I think that caught off to me. But it was almost like a mental thing too. I'm like, this tastes so good. It was that. The other thing at the aid stations I love was they had like boiled potatoes and salt that you could like dip the potato in, like a little chunk of potato. It was awesome. Kind of like those hash browns, but it was the tastiest thing. Just like a salt on the side of a boiled potato, and I'd walk away from the aid station eating it. It was delicious.
That makes a lot of sense. That's cool. It's a first.
Yeah. So that was the end of loop 1. I did that in about 3 hours. So I was pretty good overall. Maybe like 10.5-minute pace or something like that.
It's really fast.
Something like I think
it's flat though.
What it ended up being.
It's pretty fast.
Maybe it was a little bit more than that. Maybe closer to 11 minutes. But still, like I ended up sticking with that the entire race. I kept that pace.
Whoosh.
So that was cool. So yeah, I went on to loop 2. Loop 1, I did no music, that type of thing. I kind of use that as a game sometimes. I'm like, no music, let me focus on things. Loop 2, I was like, okay, I'm gonna check in. I'm gonna get some music. That'll be like a little boost. That'll be cool. And then loop 2 was cool because for that was a cool loop because people weren't around. I was kind of by myself. I could run my own race. I could walk the inclines, do my own thing, talk to people here, there, and everything. It was also cool because like I hit the halfway mark. I started hitting like PRs for myself. Like that was when I was getting like the 30s, 30-mile mark, like towards the end of it and everything. I'm like, I've never ran 30 miles before. So it was all like cool things to celebrate like through the race. Like it was all uncharted territory. So I was enjoying that the whole thing. That was something else that my brothers always said to me is just like, enjoy the race, like enjoy those little things. Like you don't run it to finish, like and cross the finish line. Don't be looking forward for the finish line the entire time. Like enjoy the race. Like when you're at mile 35, like that's what you train for. So I was really trying to just enjoy it. And that was a good loop for me. Towards the end of that, my stomach started feeling a little weird. I don't know. What's that?
Towards the end of second loop?
Yeah. I don't know if it was the soda I was drinking or what. It just started feeling a little bit weird. So I got to the end though. It was cool though because my dad met me at that point. It was cool. He was like on his bike. He had like a mountain bike. So like towards the end of the second loop, all of a sudden he's there and he's like taking a video. And I was like, oh, cool. That's like a nice little boost. He's like following me on the bike towards like the towards where our tent was. And my brother was there. He was going to join me. So that was cool. Stomach's feeling a little bit weird. I took some watermelon and just started like walking a little bit at that start of that third loop. Just trying to like get that under control, just like needed it to settle a little bit. But overall my body was feeling good. I was really excited. I felt something in my knee a little bit and I was like, oh, is that IT band? But this is another thing I remind myself of. Just because you feel something coming on doesn't mean it's going to get worse. Like just because like everyone thinks like, oh, I'm feeling something. Oh, it's going to get worse. My foot's going to fall off type thing. But it doesn't mean it's going to get worse. I did a little bit of like dynamic stretching as I was running, some butt kicks, and it went away and I never felt the rest of the race. So trying to stay positive.
Nice.
Yeah. Then loop 3, that was awesome with my brother there.
Yeah, that's right.
That was cool. So I was like, I was cruising. I felt like I was flying, but all I was really doing was keeping the pace that I kept the entire time. But I was just running on tired legs, so it felt like I was working harder. But I ended up like, not that I run it for this reason, but I ended up like passing like 15 people, just like chipping away at it. I'd see someone, I'd be like, just slowly but surely, people were trickling off. Like there was people I saw in the first lap that by the third loop, they're like, yeah, I hit it a little bit too hard in the beginning, but like I was able to finish strong. So that was really cool. I ran strong like through the entire third loop. My stomach felt better. I was going. I was like, one of my other things is I like sprint the downhills. I like, literally just like let it loose. Just let gravity do its work. My brother's like, he's like, don't let a rock take you down. He's like, your legs are tired.
Seriously.
Your feet are tired. Like, I get it, but don't let a rock take you down. So, it was cool though. So I finished the third loop. And like I said, though, I'm like looking at my watch and I'm like, I'm not going to hit 50 miles. And like,
you even did the extra mile. Come on.
That?
And you even did the extra mile earlier, right?
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, how am I really? Yeah. Well, that's a great point. Yeah. I'm like, if anything, I should be going over, not still under. It's like, whatever happens. They did have to alter this course a little bit this year compared to previous years because there was construction at some different part of it. So I don't know if it got a little messed up. So that was in the back of my head. So that was like kind of mixed feelings at the finish. I go and across the finish line and it's like a crazy moment, but I ended up going and I kept running.
Yeah. Like when you passed the finish line, did you stop at all? Or did you just like,
I handed the medal and hat to my wife and was like, I gotta go. I gotta keep going. So my brother went with me, and we ran, and we ran like another like mile or so, and then like walked a little bit more. But I hit the 50 miles. My Strava had to hit 50 miles.
Nice. So you like went out like another mile and then like did the same mile back, and that
Yeah, it
got
was
you your
hard.
50.
It was really hard mental. Like I was strong the entire time. Towards the end of that third loop, my stomach was feeling a little bit weird again. My brother's like, he's like, just eat something. Because it's easy to get in the mindset of being like, I'm almost done. Like I'll just push through it and everything. But it just helps to eat something. Like let it hit your body. You feel so much better. So he convinced me to eat a little bit of, I had some like Nerds clusters. It's like,
Yeah, dude. Those are good.
delicious. So I was able to eat some of those, and that helped, especially for running like afterwards and everything. And yeah, I hit that 50-mile mark, and yeah, injury free. I felt better physically finishing the 50 milers than I did the marathon.
Dang. Isn't that interesting? I talked to a guy yesterday. His episode will come out before this. Eric, I think. And he said the same thing. He did a marathon and then he did a 50K, and he felt better at the 50K than the marathon. But maybe because like the level you push yourself is harder in the marathon. I don't know.
Yeah, and like, I mean, I put it like it was extra work. If I would have did one of those first ultras that got canceled, I probably wouldn't have been saying the same thing. I put in extra work of doing some strength training, getting that IT band under control, and I think that that's what it was really. I just put in extra time, extra miles, strength training, and it was better prepared. But yeah, I mean, you just run it as a different race. I mean, there's more hills and elevation that hits your body different, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Would you say that at any point during the 50 miler that you hit the wall? Maybe it was at that very end when you were like psyched out because you didn't actually reach 50 miles, or I don't know, but were there any other points where you were like, I don't know,
Honestly,
serious
no. I hit a
physical or
wall.
mental vibes?
I hit a wall like in that marathon, so I get it. I get the whole hitting the wall thing. I pushed through the last little
Yeah.
bit of that. I felt good and enjoyed that entire race. Other than that
That's
first loop where like I
fantastic.
think I was just psyched out a little bit. I don't think I
Yeah.
really hit that wall. I mean, at that last like the 2 miles before the finish line, when my stomach was feeling a little bit weird. I don't know that that was necessarily the wall. I think that was just like my body kind of just like my stomach just feeling a little bit weird. So maybe you could call it that, but yeah, no, nothing super crazy. I'm fortunate to have a good experience.
Yeah. That is awesome. And it's good to hear. Like, it's good to hear that. I think I've met a couple of the people that have felt maybe that they didn't hit a wall, but I feel like most people say they feel like they hit a wall at some point. But interesting to know that that's not a necessary piece of the ultra puzzle, you may say. And does that mean that the victory was less sweet? I don't know. Like, how did you feel when you actually got your 50 miles? So you came back and you crossed the finish line for real. How were you mentally, emotionally, and yeah?
So I feel like when I first crossed the finish line, like like race, like finished, got my medal and everything, I felt like emotions boiling up a little bit, kind of like in a good way.
Sure.
Like I felt awesome. Like I was like, I did it. That was awesome. But I was also like, it just like was like it's done now. This months and months and months of getting ready for this, it's done. I did it, and so it's a really weird feeling. I felt great and accomplished and everything, and then of course I had to go run a little bit more. But then once I finally went back and sat down and everything, I don't know. I didn't feel anything. I just was like, I did feel in my head, I was like, I know I can do a longer race. I can do more. So that was awesome. But yeah, no, also I just overall felt really great about it.
Good. That's awesome, dude. I'm glad you felt so great about that, and that you could do longer. That's cool.
I don't know if you've ever experienced like after a race, like I know after the marathon I afterwards almost felt like depressed. Like not right after the race, but when you're building up for something and all of a sudden like you're peaking your miles and then you do the race and it's done and then it's just like, what's next? I felt like that after the marathon. And then this was a little bit different because 5 days later I was getting surgery. So that was the next thing in my mind. It's not even just like what's next. I was like, I know what's next.
Yeah, and that was also maybe depressing as well. Or was the feeling depressing this time too after the 50 miler?
Not so much because, like I said, I knew I wasn't going to have to just like, because part of the depressing part after the marathon was just like going back out on runs and being like, I'm going to start over and just going on these runs, not really for like working towards anything. I didn't run after this race because I went and got surgery and I just knew that was coming. It was a necessary step. I had to get it taken care of and I just had to accept it. So it just was what it was. And I felt okay about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good because I could see myself being like, gotta go get the surgery. Can't be running probably for a little while. And I mean, at this point in my life, running is like integral to my system and sanity. So
yeah, and
I don't know if you felt that.
I planned it this way, so I knew I was going to need a break just generally after the race, like mentally, physically.
True.
So that's why I planned the surgery. My surgeon was like, I don't know how you're going to do this race, but good luck. I was like, I'm going to do it, and I'll see you a couple days after. So I planned it this way. I'm hitting that point, what you just mentioned about like the sanity a little bit now.
Okay.
Now I'm like 5 weeks post-op, and I'm just like, that sucks. I can't ride my bike. I can't run. Even like if I try to trot up the stairs, my shoulder jiggles and like I'm in pain. Like I really truthfully can't.
Dang.
So I'm hitting that now where I know it's good for my mental health. I know it makes me feel good. I'm like just itching to kind of get back into it now.
Yeah. And how long is this going to be until you can get running again, do you think?
They said generally like 3 months from surgery. So probably another like a little less than 2 months.
Okay. That's doable.
Yeah.
You can count your blessings, Patrick, because my neighbor busted her Achilles and she's gone for a year. So
yeah, like luckily this wasn't a running injury. It's not my lower body, hopefully. And then, now that I'm out of the sling, I'm trying to get back into just doing some like light body weight stuff, lunges, and trying to do some of those stabilizer muscles and like use it as an opportunity to work those things up. So, just not trying to dwell on it.
Yeah, man, you'll get back at it in due time. But man, you did a 50 miler, and that is a fantastic thing. It was your first ultra. So you said and alluded to that you felt like you could run longer. So what's in your brain, Patrick? Or do you have a race scoped out that's coming up in your future?
I don't have anything on the books. Like, because I don't know how this getting back into running again is going to feel. I'm not planning on anything. I have that Philly marathon in my head it's in November. So if I can start running in like August, I'm like, I could probably get myself ready. But I'm not going to force that because I'm not all that like passionate about the marathon anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of see how it feels getting back into it and hopefully maybe do something this fall, but definitely get some stuff on the books for next year. Probably do another 50 miler, maybe, and then, I mean, the 50K, if that falls in like the stepping stones, 50 miler, and then work my way up. I want to hit 100K next, and then we'll see. I mean, that 100 milers. I think I'll do it eventually. I really do. I love the ultra running and everything. I think that I just got to put in the time. I'm not saying I'm going to just do. I could see myself maybe doing it at the end of next year, but we'll see how things go. That's just running through the dark, running 24 hours in the dark. That's next level. I'll get there, but we'll see. We'll see when.
Yeah, dude. I ditto that. Dang, that's pretty crazy. But I'd really love to do it. Yeah.
I'd like to start traveling for some races too.
Yeah. Utah.
Yeah.
Or Colorado. I wouldn't blame you. Yeah. They got good stuff in Colorado too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to come out a little early and acclimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned like avoiding a race with like 8,000 feet of elevation gain, and I was like, man, that'd be nice. So many of them out here. Like, there's the one really close to me, and it's 10,000 in 50 miles, and it's in my backyard. It's like that'd be really convenient, but oh my gosh.
And like honestly, if that was the case, I might have reconsidered doing a 50 miler as my first ultra. Like if I was looking at that, but I looked at this as 3,500 feet across 50 miles. That wasn't crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
you could do it.
yeah.
Keeping the consistent pace. Yeah, it's doable. Well, yeah, anyways, good for you, man. And I hope you get that 100-miler someday. Hopefully we can bring you back on and
Yeah.
tell your whole story again. If you, I have a question. If you were to go back to like your training, yourself that was training for this, would you give that person any advice that's, any advice to like change the way that things went, or are you just totally happy with how things went and you wouldn't even change how you trained for it?
I think with the way things went, I wouldn't change anything I would do. I like those things I mentioned, like enjoying the race, like people have mentioned the strength, like those are things that I try to remind myself of. I think it's good to be aware of for other people listening. Like that strength training, I think that's huge. Like you can overcome that IT band stuff. And then, yeah, I think that those are just important things. I think that I really prepared well, making my mind strong, running in the rain, running when you don't want to. That's huge. To stick with that.
Yeah.
That's something I think that like I would remind myself of and continue to remind myself of is like when you don't want to go on those runs, those are the ones that like you need to go on. Like make your mind strong. I think that's what really is going to get you through the ultras. And I think that I need to keep that in mind because I don't think every ultra is going to be as smooth as the one I did. I'm going to hit one where it's raining the entire time, or when I go up to the next level of 100 miles, I'm going to hit that pain cave, and I got to remind myself of those things. So I think I just got to remember the same things that I've been telling myself through this one.
Cool. That's good. Yeah, good advice for past self and anyone listening. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing that, and thanks for coming on. Patrick, you said you're on Strava. I want to make this a regular thing on the podcast. If people are comfortable with it, would you be comfortable sharing your Strava and like having people check out what your training looked like and they can follow you if they want?
I'm all about cheering people on Strava. I have like 10 followers right now. They cheer me on.
Wow, you're popular.
Yeah.
Cool, dude. Yeah, I'll have you share that with me and I'll put it in the show notes. So if you want to follow Patrick, see what he did to get to his 50 miler, see what he's doing in the future, you can follow him. I'll also mention that down in the show notes, there's a couple links. There's a link to get email updates for the podcast, and I'll also be sending out different sorts of ultra training tips and such through that as well. And you can also join the Ordinary to Ultra Facebook and Strava groups. Those are linked in there as well. Just a bunch of people like us. There's about 50 people in there, pretty small, tight-knit group where we just share what's going on, ask questions, and share our achievements. A lot of people posting in there when they run their first ultra and such. But feel free to join. And anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks again, Patrick, for sharing your story, man. I super appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. This was awesome. I appreciate it. I think this is a cool little area to fill people in on. So I think it was fun. It was cool.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. Hey, your host, Brendan here. I just wanted to thank you personally for listening to today's episode. As someone preparing for my own first ultramarathon, I've found these conversations to be super valuable, and I hope they are for you as well. Whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or somewhere else, make sure to follow or subscribe so you know when the next episode comes out. Also, make sure you check out the show notes of this episode. There's a link to sign up for the Ordinary to Ultra email newsletter. to join our Facebook and Strava groups where you can meet other people striving to run their first ultra marathon and see any links that our guests may have provided as well. Thanks again, and we'll catch you in the next episode.